So it's now my pleasure to introduce David Washington.
My name is David Washington. It's an honor to be here. Thank you, Helga, for inviting me. And I was asked to come this morning and speak about some of the things that I've gone through related to trauma and where I am now. So to start out with, the first trauma I experienced was when I was in second grade. I was raped by two men in a playground. And at that time, because of the nature of the rape, I had to go to the hospital, and we had the police involved. And I'm sure my family probably didn't know what to do or how to respond to what had happened. And my mom made the statement, look at what you've done to this family, or what you're doing to this family. So at some point, I started to internalize the rape as being my fault. And I don't think that's unusual for survivors. But what happened during that year also was I started being sexually abused by someone else in the neighborhood, and I was unable to focus in school. And we all know second grade is really critical. So I had a hard time learning like the ABCs, and 1 + 1 is 2. And the school decided that I was learning disabled at that point. And from that point on up to 9th grade, I was in the special ed classes. Luckily, I was introduced to the arts, and music became a way of escape for me. So I learned how to play the saxophone, and I would practice for 3 or 4 hours a day. And when I wasn't practicing, I would usually just go out in the backyard and kind of like what Ms. Powers was talking about, do the isolation. It was kind of like in my own little fantasy world. As I got older, in the 9th grade, I acquired a rare form of cancer, and they told me that I would have had 3 days to live. I had a growth in my throat the size of a grapefruit, and the doctors had said, one night you probably just would have laid down and you wouldn't have woken up. And I became very angry about that, and I had been raised under the religious tenets that only people that are punished by God have things like that happen to them. And not knowing how to cope with the sexual abuse and the rape, once again, I felt that there was something wrong with me. And I started to meet people that were consuming alcohol. So in 9th grade, I started drinking, and the first time I drank was the first time I felt normal. And it was the first time I was accepted by my peers in my eyes. So I started running around with people that drink and do other things. But in the interim, I started thinking about I wanted to do something with my life. And I wanted to go to college, but because I was in these learning disabled classes, and those classes that are off the side of the gym and it's the same teacher all day, I told my dad that I wanted to go to college and study music. And in order to do that, you need to take certain classes. And the school had told my dad that there was no way that I could take, and at that time I needed a psychology and a college math. And they was like, there's no way your son is going to be able to take these classes and pass. But my father was very persistent. And one thing I didn't mention, my mom walked out on us when we were 11. So I think that was 8th grade. And my dad was a very strong person in my life. So I got to take the class and I scored a B. And I remember they were like, how did that happen? And still in my mind, even though I got the grades, I didn't think that I was okay. And I was still drinking. And I got to come to college. I got a partial scholarship to a college up on Georgia Avenue that I was pretty excited about. But not having any boundaries and ways of understanding danger and safety, I started running with people that were from Lorton. And I didn't know what Lorton was. I thought it was just a town like Hagerstown. I didn't know that it's a prison. And I got involved in other things. And eventually, within a year of being here, I was homeless, living from place to place, and just wanting to die. Basically, at that point, wanting to die. When my father let me come home, I got clean. Somehow I managed to end up in a 12-step program. Was 6 months clean, no substances at all, in the fellowship, sponsorship, working the steps, doing everything that the substance abuse treatment programs say do. I started having, I guess we could say, a nervous breakdown. I became depressed. angry. I wanted to quit my job, and I had a pretty good job at that time. And luckily, someone said there's something wrong, and that was the time, not what happened, but that there's something wrong. And I was sent to a program in Florida, and by the grace of God, that program, they put me in a substance abuse unit, and I was like, well, I've been clean for 6 months. And they're like, denial. And I'm like, no, really, I've been clean for 6 months. And for some reason, they put me on the unit for those who have been sexually abused. And when I got on that unit, my first reaction was anger. That's not an issue. I was 1991, however old I was. I didn't feel that stuff had affected me at all. But thank God for the great treatment that I was given. I was 25. That's how old I was. I was able to begin to understand what had happened to me. And that was the first step in my recovery, the getting clean and then accepting the fact that I was a survivor of rape. And I haven't said this publicly too often, so it's been a little stress-inducing. Some of the things that have happened as a result of the trauma that I went through, one was that there was never any treatment. I don't know what the creative minds were thinking that were the parents and the schools. I guess they just figured that was normal behavior. When I did get in trouble, because I was this good kid from this good family, they just kind of brushed it to the side. Got into a fight with the principal, and they were like, the principal actually said, I didn't know you had it in you. So I'm assuming that felt like a good thing. Because I was always the quiet, subdued person. The other thing that I wanted to share about was that I've been fortunate enough to be able to come to work in the field of trauma. In 2002, I went to work for a county detention center implementing trauma services for men and women who have adverse childhood experiences. And I also got to do some work with the Juvenile Justice Service. And I just wanted to share that of the 10 people that come through our program, 9 of those young men and women have never been treated for trauma. And when I look at them, I see me. And I often think, what if someone would have taken the time to answer the proverbial question that we're now saying, what happened to you, instead of what's wrong with you? What would have happened if there would have been treatment for a young man, and this was back in 70-something, for a young man who was raped. And of course, back then, we didn't really talk that much about it. You just kind of shoved it under the rug. What could have happened if they hadn't labeled me learning disabled? What if someone would have said, he's probably not responding to what's going on as a result of the rape? To this, and again, till recently, very few people knew about the sexual abuse. I finally told my dad in 1991. I've never told my mom. I don't plan on ever telling her. But when I come here today, I think about the what ifs, and then I just heard what was being said, and I think about the possibility of the visions for people like me and what I could have become had someone intervened earlier. Not to say that who I am is bad, but just the opportunities that could have been available to me had there been some other track for me to go down. So again, it's an honor to be here, and thank you for asking me.